On Saturday, September 14th, 2024, at 6 o'clock in the evening, my daughter-in-law Madison Whitmore Jenkins stood in the lobby of the Silverstone Grand Hotel in Wilmington, North Carolina, wearing a custom Vera Wang gown worth $12,000, and told the staff that I wasn't invited to the wedding I had paid $76,400 to fund. I'm Ruby Mae Jenkins. I'm 62 years old, and I want to tell you my story. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please stay with me until the end, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about love, family, and the price of dignity. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't beg. I said, I understand, turned around, and walked out. Then I decided to do something about it. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand who I was before that moment, and who I became after. The Silverstone Grand Hotel sits on Harbor Boulevard in downtown Wilmington, all white columns and Spanish moss and old Southern money. The kind of place where valets wear white gloves and the marble floors shine so bright you can see your reflection. I'd never been inside before that night, even though I'd lived in Wilmington for 43 years. Places like that weren't built for women like me, black nurses who worked the night shift at New Hanover Regional Medical Center, who clipped coupons and bought their Sunday dresses at the outlet mall on Market Street. But I'd paid for every inch of that hotel's grand ballroom, every crystal chandelier, every white linen tablecloth, every orchid centerpiece imported from Thailand. I just didn't know if my name would be on anything except the bank transfers. I arrived at 5:45, 15 minutes early like my mother taught me. Colored folks can't afford to be late, she used to say in her Nigerian accent. The one that never quite left, even after 30 years in America. They already looking for reasons to say we don't belong. I wore my navy blue dress with the pearl buttons, the one I'd bought at Belk's 2 weeks earlier. Not expensive, $147 on sale, but it made me feel like somebody you don't overlook. I'd gotten my hair done that morning at Dorothy's Divine Hair Salon on 3rd Street. Dorothy Evans had been doing my hair every other Saturday for 22 years. Ever since my late husband Samuel brought me to Wilmington after we got married. She'd pressed and curled it into soft waves that framed my face, and when I looked in her mirror, I saw a woman who belonged at her own son's wedding. I was wearing the pearl necklace Samuel gave me on our 30th anniversary, 3 months before the cancer diagnosis. I hadn't worn it since his funeral 3 years ago. The weight of it around my neck felt like his hands on my shoulders, steady and sure. The hotel lobby smelled like expensive perfume and fresh flowers. A young woman sat at a table near the entrance with a clipboard and a printed guest list. She wore a black dress and a professional smile, and her name tag said Emily. Good evening, I said, setting my silver clutch on the table. My hands weren't shaking yet. I'm Ruby Jenkins. Emily's smile stayed in place as she ran her finger down the list. Down, 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 then back up, then down again. I'm sorry, ma'am, she said, looking up with that awkward expression people get when they have to deliver bad news. I don't see a Ruby Jenkins on the list. It might be under Ruby Mae Jenkins, I offered. Or perhaps Mrs. Samuel Jenkins. She checked again, shook her head. I'm sorry. There's no Jenkins at all except the groom Terrence. That's when I heard it. The laugh. It cut through the classical music and the murmur of arriving guests like a knife through silk. I knew that laugh. I'd been hearing it for 4 years, ever since my son brought Madison home for Thanksgiving dinner in 2020. Oh, that's because she's not invited. Madison appeared from around a marble column, walking toward us in her wedding gown. $12,000 of white silk and French lace, custom-fitted to her size 2 frame. Her blonde hair was swept up in an intricate updo that probably cost $500 at the salon. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine, all grace and elegance and old money confidence. She looked at me, and her smile was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. But thank you for dressing up, Ruby, she said, tilting her head like she was admiring a child's art project. Really, you look persistent. I didn't move. Not at first. I just stared at her, then at Emily, then back at Madison. I'm the groom's mother, I said quietly. Yes, Madison replied, still smiling. I know who you are. No confusion, no apology, no, let me check with someone. Just that smile, bright and sharp as broken glass, and the barest glance toward the ballroom doors where I could hear music swelling and glasses clinking. Somewhere behind those doors, my son Terrence was laughing, toasting, celebrating his new life. Without me. I stood in that lobby in my $147 dress, the one I'd chosen so carefully. I'd touched up my hair the night before after Dorothy styled it that morning. I'd put on the necklace Samuel gave me, even though wearing it made my chest hurt with missing him. And now I was being dismissed. Politely, publicly, by the woman I'd funded this entire evening for. "This must be some mistake," I said, keeping my voice level. Madison's smile widened. "Oh, I don't think so." Her voice dripped with false sweetness, the kind white women use when they want to sound kind while being cruel. "Look, the venue is at capacity and we really can't have any surprises. You understand how these things are." She paused, then added, "Maybe there's another event you're meant to be at?" My knees almost gave out. Not from age. I'd worked 12-hour shifts on my feet for 35 years. My knees were fine, but from the sheer humiliation of it. I was being asked to leave, politely but firmly, from the wedding I had paid $76,400 to create. And she knew. Of course she knew. Emily, the girl at the check-in table, looked embarrassed now, her eyes darting between us like maybe she'd misunderstood something. "Should I check again?" she asked softly. Madison leaned in, putting one manicured hand on the table. Her engagement ring, 3 carats, Tiffany's, bought with money my son didn't have, caught the light. "She's not expected," Madison said firmly to Emily. Then she looked at me. "Let's not make a scene." A scene. Is that what they feared from me? That I'd raise my voice or throw my purse or sob in front of the crystal chandeliers and the white guests and the photographers who'd been paid $6,000 to document this perfect day? No, that wasn't me. That had never been me. So I nodded once. "I understand." I picked up my silver clutch, turned without another word, and walked past the valet who offered me a puzzled look. I stepped out into the warm September evening. Wilmington's sun was sinking low, casting golden light over the long rows of parked luxury cars in the lot. Black Mercedes, white BMWs, a silver Tesla, and my 14-year-old Honda Civic, forest green with a dent in the back bumper from where I'd backed into a pole at the hospital parking garage in 2019. I walked to it slowly, my heels clicking on the pavement. My chest burned, not from shame anymore that had passed the moment Madison smiled, but from something older, something quieter. Grief, I think. A new kind. Inside the car, I sat still, hands resting on the steering wheel, my dress smooth across my knees. The fabric was soft. Nice quality for the price. Samuel would have liked it. It was only then that the anger started. Slow, methodical, clear. I didn't start the car right away. Instead, I opened my silver clutch and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying. Inside was a card I'd signed that morning. "For your new beginning, with all my love, Mom." And beneath it, a cashier's check for $10,000. Honeymoon money, a soft landing for their new life together. I tucked it in with care, thinking it would be a private, quiet gift. No fuss, no credit. Now it looked absurd. I set the envelope on the passenger seat and reached for my phone. My fingers were steady as I opened my banking app. First Horizon Bank, account number ending in 7734, the one I'd opened in 1989 when Samuel and I bought our first house on Riverton Drive. The screen loaded. I navigated to recent transactions, and there it was. All of it. Every single payment, listed in neat rows with dates and amounts. June 15th, 2024, Silverstone Grand Hotel, venue deposit. $28,000. July 2nd, 2024, Elegant Affairs Catering. $22,400. July 18th, 2024, Harrison Photography Studios. $6,000. August 1st, 2024, Blooms and Petals Floral Design. $8,400. August 12th, 2024, Charleston String Quartet. $12,000. August 29th, 2024, Miscellaneous. Invitations, programs, favors. $3,600. Total $76,400. $76,400. Every cent I'd saved from 35 years of working as a registered nurse. Money I'd set aside in 1987 when Terrence was 2 years old and Samuel was still working as a carpenter before the arthritis got so bad he had to switch to furniture restoration. Money I'd built up slowly, $5 here, $20 there, overtime shifts and holiday bonuses and tax returns invested carefully over decades. I scrolled up to the email thread I'd saved. The first one was dated April 3rd, 2024. From Madison Whitmore Jenkins. To Ruby Jenkins. Subject, a special request. Private. Dear Ruby, I hope this email finds you well. I wanted to reach out privately because I have something important to discuss, and I think it's best if we keep this between us for now. As you know, Terrence and I are planning our wedding for September, and we're so excited to start this new chapter. The thing is, Terrence is very proud. You know how he is. He would never accept financial help, especially from you, because he'd see it as a failure on his part. But the truth is, Ruby, we're struggling to afford the kind of wedding that would really honor this moment. My family has certain expectations, and Terrence's colleagues from the law firm will be attending. It needs to be appropriate. What I'm asking is this. Would you consider contributing to the wedding expenses as an anonymous sponsor? My family would take the public credit, which would help Terrence save face, but you and I would know the truth. It would be your gift to us, a beautiful, generous, unconditional gift. I promise to make sure it's perfect. Everything you'd want for your son's special day. Please think about it. And please, let's keep this private. You know how Terrence gets about money and pride. With love, Madison. I remembered reading that email in my kitchen, sitting at the same Formica table Samuel and I bought in 1991. I'd read it 3 times, feeling something twist in my stomach even then. But I'd told myself it was thoughtful, that Madison was trying to help bridge the gap between me and Terrence, a gap that had been widening for years. I'd believed her when she said it was about Terrence's pride. I'd believed her when she said with love. Now, sitting in my car outside the hotel where I'd just been turned away, I saw it clearly. She hadn't wanted to include me. She'd wanted to erase me. My name wasn't on the guest list, but my bank account number was all over the invoices. I looked at the envelope again, the $10,000 check inside it. Money I'd withdrawn on Friday, standing in line at the First Horizon Bank on Market Street, waiting 20 minutes while the teller processed the cashier's check. I picked up the envelope, opened it carefully, and pulled out the check. Then I tore it in half, then in quarters, then into tiny pieces that scattered across my lap like confetti. The satisfaction was small, but real. I pulled up my contacts and found the name I needed. Richard Monroe, my personal banking representative for the past 15 years. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Mrs. Jenkins," he said warmly. "Good evening. What can I do for you?" "Hello, Richard," I said calmly. "I need you to stop all pending transactions related to the wedding immediately." A pause. Typing sounds. "Ma'am, I'm looking at the account now. There are several payments scheduled to process between tonight and tomorrow morning. The final venue payment, the catering balance, the entertainment. I know what they are," I interrupted gently. "I need you to stop them all." Another pause, longer this time. "Mrs. Jenkins, some of these vendors may have already begun services. There could be significant penalty fees. I understand. Stop them anyway. May I ask, is there a problem?" I looked at the hotel entrance where a couple in formal wear was walking in, laughing together. "The problem, Richard, is that the people hosting this wedding made very sure I wasn't invited to it. So I've decided they can pay for it themselves." Silence on the other end of the line. Then quietly, "I see. I'm very sorry to hear that, Mrs. Jenkins." "Thank you. How much can you stop?" More typing. "The final venue payment of $28,000 is scheduled for 6 a.m. tomorrow. That hasn't processed yet. The catering balance of $11,200 is pending. The band's final payment of $6,000 is also pending. I can flag all of those." "Do it." "The photography deposit already cleared last month and the floral design was paid in full. Those are done." "I understand." "Mrs. Jenkins, this will likely result in breach of contract fees. Possibly $8,000 to $10,000 total." "I'll pay them," I said. "Cancel everything you can." "Yes, ma'am. I'll send you confirmation emails within the hour." "Thank you, Richard." I hung up and sat in the quiet car. The sun had almost set now. The sky was turning that particular shade of purple-orange that Samuel used to stop and photograph with his old Canon camera. He'd been an amateur photographer, taking pictures of sunsets and birds in our neighbor's garden, developing them in our basement darkroom until the chemicals got too expensive. I missed him so much in that moment that it felt like a physical weight on my chest. But Samuel wasn't here, and I had to handle this myself. I started the car, pulled out of the parking lot, and drove home. My house is a small white bungalow on Riverton Drive, 3 blocks from the Cape Fear River. Samuel and I bought it in 1989 for $68,000, a fortune to us then. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with yellow linoleum floors, and a back porch with a creaky 3rd step that Samuel always meant to fix but never did. It was 8:47 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway. The house was dark. I'd left in such a hurry that I'd forgotten to leave the porch light on. Inside, I didn't turn on many lights. Just the small lamp in the living room, the one with the stained glass shade my mother sent from Lagos before she passed. I walked through the quiet rooms, past the couch where Samuel used to fall asleep watching basketball, past the bookshelf full of his carpentry manuals and my nursing textbooks, past the framed photo of Terrence's high school graduation, where he's wearing his cap and gown and actually smiling at the camera. I stopped in front of that photo. Terrence had been 18 then, tall and handsome, with Samuel's dimples and my mother's nose. He'd gotten a full scholarship to UNC Wilmington for undergrad, then loans for Harvard Law School. We'd been so proud. Samuel cried at the graduation, actual tears running down his face while he clapped until his hands hurt. When had it changed? When had my son started being ashamed of us? I thought about the last time Terrence had been in this house. February 2023. He'd stopped by for an hour on his way to Charlotte for a deposition, barely taking off his coat, checking his phone every 5 minutes. He hadn't stayed for dinner. Before that? Thanksgiving 2021, and he'd brought Madison for the first time. I'd made sweet potato pie, Samuel's favorite recipe. Madison had taken 1 small slice, pushed it around her plate, and said, "This is so authentic." The way she'd said authentic had made my spine stiffen. But I'd smiled and offered her more, because that's what you do when you're trying to welcome your son's fiancé into the family. You ignore the small cuts. You pretend you didn't hear the edge in her voice when she looked around our small living room and said, "This is cozy." Cozy meant small. Authentic meant unsophisticated. I'd known. Even then, I'd known. But I'd hoped. God help me. I'd hoped that love would be enough. That if I just gave enough, helped enough, stayed quiet enough, I'd still be part of my son's life. I walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer beside the sink. Inside, I kept folders of important documents, utility bills, insurance papers, tax returns, and one labeled Terrence Wedding 2024. I pulled it out and spread the contents on the kitchen table. Printed emails from Madison, contracts from vendors, all CCing me as payment sponsor, anonymous. Itemized invoices, credit card receipts, everything. I sat down and started making calls. I dialed the number on the contract. Pearl Weddings and Events, owned by Chloe Peterson. "Pearl Weddings, this is Chloe speaking." Her voice was cheerful, professional. "Good evening, Chloe. This is Ruby Jenkins." "Oh, Mrs. Jenkins." The cheer shifted to something more careful. "Is everything all right? The ceremony should be starting in about an hour. I need to cancel all remaining services effective immediately." Silence. Then, I'm sorry, what? "I need you to cancel all services for the Robinson Jenkins wedding. Tonight." "Mrs. Jenkins, that's impossible. The wedding is happening. Right now. The guests are arriving. The venue is set. The caterers are on their way. Then stop them." "I can't just—" "Mrs. Jenkins, there are contracts. There are 120 people expecting dinner. The band is setting up. The photographer is already taking pre-ceremony shots. This is my money, Chloe, and I'm withdrawing it." Another silence, longer this time. I could hear her breathing. "May I ask, did something happen?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I arrived at the venue at 5:45 this evening, and I was informed by Madison that I'm not on the guest list. In fact, I was told I'm not invited at all." "Oh my God." Chloe's voice dropped. "Mrs. Jenkins, I had no idea. Madison told us you were an elderly aunt who couldn't travel due to health reasons. She said you'd asked to contribute anonymously as a gift, but didn't want to attend." "I'm not an aunt," I said quietly. "I'm Terrence's mother. I'm 62 years old, not elderly, and I very much wanted to attend my only son's wedding. I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable. Let me call Madison right now and fix this. No, don't fix it. Cancel it. But Mrs. Jenkins, I've already contacted my bank. All pending payments have been stopped. The venue won't receive their final $28,000. The caterers won't get their $11,200. The band won't get their $6,000. As of right now, none of those services are paid for. I could hear papers rustling, keyboard clicking. Oh my God, Chloe whispered. Oh my God. Mrs. Jenkins, this is going to be... The hotel will shut down the event. The caterers will walk. We're going to have 120 people with no dinner, no music, no... Then I suggest Madison and Terrence figure out how to pay for it themselves. But they can't. I've seen their finances. They don't have this kind of liquidity. Everything was dependent on your... Mrs. Jenkins, please. I understand you're hurt, but there are innocent people who are going to be affected by this. Guests who traveled from out of state, vendors who've already done the work. Chloe, I interrupted gently. Those people aren't my concern anymore. None of this is my concern. I was made very clear that I'm not welcome, so I'm removing myself, completely. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. Just cancel what you can and inform the parties involved. Mrs. Jenkins, please, think about this. Think about your son. I've been thinking about my son for 35 years, I said. Tonight, I'm thinking about myself. I hung up. I needed to talk to someone who would understand. I dialed Dorothy Evans, my best friend since 1991. She answered immediately. Ruby, girl, how was the wedding? Did Terrence cry when he saw you? I bet he... Dorothy, I said quietly. I need to tell you something. My voice must have carried the weight because she went silent immediately. What happened? I told her everything. The lobby, Madison's smile, the dismissal, the cancellations. When I finished, Dorothy was quiet for 10 long seconds. Then, that little... She bit off whatever word was coming next. Ruby Mae Jenkins. I'm coming over right now. You don't have to. I'm already getting my keys. I'll be there in 15 minutes. You better have some of that brandy Samuel kept in the cabinet because we're going to need it. She hung up before I could protest. 14 minutes later, her car pulled into my driveway. Dorothy Evans burst through my front door at 10:02 p.m. Without knocking, we'd stopped knocking at each other's houses sometime around 1995. She was wearing her purple church robe over pajama pants and house slippers, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf. In her hands, she carried a Tupperware container. Pound cake, she announced, setting it on my kitchen table. Fresh from this morning. And before you say you're not hungry, I don't care. We're eating it anyway. She opened my cabinet, the one above the refrigerator where Samuel used to keep his special occasions bottle of Hennessy, and pulled it down. The bottle was 3/4 full. It had been sitting there untouched since his funeral in March 2021. Dorothy poured 2 generous glasses, set one in front of me, and lowered herself into the chair across from mine with a heavy sigh. Now, she said, tell me again, slowly, because I need to make sure I heard you right the first time. I told her again. Every detail. The lobby, Emily's confused face, Madison's cold smile, the phrase, she's not invited, delivered like she was commenting on the weather. Dorothy's jaw got tighter with each sentence. When I finished, she took a long drink of brandy, set the glass down hard enough to rattle the table, and said, I'm going to tell you something I didn't want to tell you before. I waited. Last Tuesday, September 10th, Madison came into the salon. Dorothy owned Divine Hair, a Black-owned beauty shop on 3rd Street that had been a Wilmington institution for 30 years. Everyone went to Dorothy's, church ladies, young professionals, high school girls getting braids for prom. It was the kind of place where women talked freely, where secrets got shared under the hum of hair dryers and the chemical smell of relaxer. She came in for a wash and set, Dorothy continued, brought 2 of her bridesmaids with her. White girls, both of them, talking loud like they owned the place. She paused, her mouth twisting. Ruby, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but you know how the chairs are. They were right next to my station while I was doing Mrs. Patterson's press and curl. What did they say? I asked quietly. Dorothy's eyes met mine. One of the bridesmaids, blonde, skinny, had on too much perfume. She asked Madison if Terrence's family was coming to the wedding, and Madison laughed. That same laugh you just described, and she said, well, his mother won't be there, thank God. Can you imagine? My hands tightened around my glass. The bridesmaid said, "Why not?" And Madison said, Dorothy stopped, shook her head. "Ruby, I don't want to hurt you. Tell me." She said, "Because Terrence's family is so simple. His mother worked in a hospital her whole life, cleaning basically, and his father was some kind of handyman. Sweet people, I'm sure, but they don't fit the aesthetic we're going for. This wedding needs to look a certain way, and having them there would just complicate things." The room went very quiet. "Cleaning," I repeated softly. "I was a registered nurse for 35 years. I supervised a 12-person team. I trained new nurses. I saved lives, Dorothy." "I know, honey. I know." "And Samuel wasn't a handyman. He was a master carpenter. He built the altar at First Baptist. He restored antique furniture for the Historical Society. He had clients who paid him $3,000 for a single piece." "I know," Dorothy said again, reaching across to squeeze my hand. I took a breath. "What else did she say?" "She said Terrence agreed it was better this way, that he told her you probably wouldn't want to come anyway, because you never felt comfortable in those environments." Dorothy's voice was bitter. "Then one of the bridesmaids said something about the wedding being classy, and Madison said exactly, old Charleston elegance, not—" And then she trailed off. "But the way she said it, Ruby, the way she said not. I knew exactly what she meant. Not black, not working class, not us." I stared at my brandy glass. The amber liquid caught the light. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I asked. "Because I hoped I was wrong," Dorothy said. "I hoped maybe I'd misheard, or maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. And I knew if I told you, it would hurt. And you'd already been hurt so much, losing Samuel, and Terrence being distant." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry. I should have told you." "No," I said. "You were trying to protect me, but I needed to know." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Dorothy said, "So what now? You really canceled everything?" "Everything I could." "And tomorrow, when they realize?" I looked at her steadily. "Tomorrow they learn what it costs to erase someone." Dorothy raised her glass. "To Ruby Mae Jenkins," she said, "who finally stopped shrinking." We drank to that. Dorothy stayed until midnight, and by the time she left, I felt steadier, clearer. I wasn't second-guessing my decision. If anything, knowing what Madison had said at the salon only confirmed what I already knew. I had never been family to them. I'd been a resource, a checkbook they wanted to access without acknowledging. After Dorothy left, I changed out of my navy dress. I folded it carefully and laid it over the armchair in my bedroom, the chair that used to be Samuel's, where he'd sit every night and take off his work boots, groaning about his knees. Then I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled down a shoebox from the top shelf. Inside were letters, dozens of them, dating back to 2005. Letters I'd written to Terrence over the years when he was at college, then law school, then working in Charlotte, then Raleigh. Letters I'd sent for his birthday, for Christmas, for no reason at all except that I missed him. Most of them he'd never responded to. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened one dated December 2019. "Dear Terrence, Merry Christmas, baby. Your daddy and I are thinking of you. We know you couldn't make it home this year because of work, but we understand. We're so proud of everything you're accomplishing. I'm sending this with a check for $500 to help with whatever you need. Your daddy's arthritis is acting up again, but don't worry about us. We're fine. We just want you to be happy. Call when you can. Love always, Mama." He'd cashed the check. He hadn't called. I looked through more letters. January 2020, April 2020, November 2020. Each one a small offering. Each one met with silence or a brief text. "Thanks, Mom. Busy with work. Talk soon." But soon never came. I put the letters back in the shoebox and set it on my dresser. Then I pulled out my laptop, an old Dell that Samuel bought me in 2015, and opened my email. There was already a message from Richard at the bank, sent at 9:58 p.m. From Richard Monroe. Subject: transaction holds confirmed. Mrs. Jenkins, per your request, the following transactions have been placed on hold and will not process. Silverstone Grand Hotel, final venue payment. $28,000. Elegant Affairs Catering, balance due. $11,200. Charleston String Quartet, final payment. $6,000. Total held, $45,200. Please note, the venue and vendors will be notified of non-payment beginning at 6 a.m. Sunday, September 15th, when the automatic payments fail to process. Estimated cancellation penalties, $7,800. Detailed breakdown attached. Please confirm you wish to proceed. Respectfully, Richard Monroe, First Horizon Bank. I typed back. Confirmed. Proceed. Thank you, Richard. Then I opened a new email and typed an address I'd saved months ago. amara.jenkins.art@gmail.com. Amara Jenkins was my granddaughter, though not by blood. She was my nephew David's daughter, orphaned at 17 when David and his wife died in a car accident in 2019. I'd taken her in without hesitation, gave her the second bedroom, helped her finish high school, supported her through her first year at UNC Wilmington's art program. Terrence had never once asked how she was doing. To amara.jenkins.art@gmail.com. Subject tomorrow. Sweet girl, I need you to know that something is going to happen tomorrow, and it might be upsetting. Your Uncle Terrence is getting married, and I was not invited to the wedding. I've made a decision about that, and there will be consequences. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry if this affects you. Grandma Ruby, I sent it at 12:47 a.m., then closed the laptop and went to bed. For the first time in 3 years, I slept through the night without waking up. My phone started ringing at 6:23 a.m. I let it ring. By 7 a.m., I had 14 missed calls. 5 from unknown numbers. 4 from Chloe Peterson, Pearl Weddings. 3 from the Silverstone Grand Hotel. 2 from a number I didn't recognize with a Charlotte area code. I made myself coffee. Maxwell House, the same brand Samuel and I had been drinking since 1984, and sat on my back porch. The morning was warm, humid, typical for mid-September in North Carolina. My small garden was overgrown. I hadn't had the energy to tend it since Samuel died. But the wildflowers were blooming anyway, purple and yellow against the weathered fence. At 7:34 a.m., my phone rang again. This time I answered. "Mrs. Jenkins!" Chloe's voice was high-pitched, panicked. "Mrs. Jenkins, thank God! I've been trying to reach you all morning. We have a situation." "I know," I said calmly. "The venue called me at 6:15. The payment didn't go through. They're saying if they don't receive the $28,000 by 9 a.m., they're canceling the ballroom reservation." "I see." "And the caterers. Mrs. Jenkins, the caterers are refusing to deliver food without the balance paid up front. That's 120 guest dinners, the cake, the champagne. Yes, I understand what catering includes. And the band called saying they won't set up without their final payment, and the florist is asking if they should still deliver because nobody's confirmed." Her voice cracked. "Mrs. Jenkins, please. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be, but there are 120 people who are going to show up at 6 o'clock tonight expecting a wedding." Then perhaps Madison and Terrence should have thought of that before they decided I wasn't welcome. Silence, then quieter. "I understand, I do. But Mrs. Jenkins, this is going to destroy your son's reputation. His law firm partners are invited. Madison's family is very well connected in Charleston. If this wedding falls apart, if word gets out that it's because of a family dispute over payment, then they'll learn the truth," I said. "That my son took $76,400 from his mother and didn't even invite her to the wedding. Let them judge him for that." "Please," Chloe whispered. "Isn't there anything—" "No," I said gently. "There isn't. Goodbye, Chloe." I hung up and turned off my phone. He arrived at 2:17 p.m. I heard his car first, a leased BMW 5 Series, midnight blue, $847 per month, according to the paperwork I'd seen when he asked me to co-sign the lease 2 years ago. He'd promised to refinance in his own name within 6 months. He never had. I watched from the living room window as he parked crookedly in my driveway, barely missing Dorothy's mailbox. He got out of the car in wrinkled khaki pants and an untucked dress shirt. His tie was missing. His hair, usually perfectly styled, stuck up in several directions. He looked like he'd been awake for 36 hours straight. I waited for the knock. It came hard and fast. "Mom! Mom, open the door!" I took my time, put down my coffee mug, stood up slowly, walked to the door at a measured pace. When I opened it, Terrence was standing there with his phone in one hand, his other hand running through his hair over and over, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. "Mom!" His voice was hoarse. What did you do? Hello, Terrence, I said. Would you like to come in? What did I? He stared at me. Are you seriously asking if I want to come in? Mom, do you know what's happening right now? I have some idea. The venue canceled. The caterers won't deliver. The band isn't coming. We have 120 guests showing up in, he checked his phone, 3 hours and 43 minutes, and we have no wedding. I see, I said calmly. That sounds stressful. He took a step back like I'd slapped him. That sounds... Mom, what the hell is wrong with you? Would you like to come inside? I asked again. Or would you prefer to have this conversation on my front porch where Mrs. Patterson across the street can hear every word? He looked around wildly, noticed Mrs. Patterson was indeed on her porch pretending to water plants while watching us, and pushed past me into the house. I closed the door and turned to face him. How could you do this? He said, his voice breaking. How could you sabotage my wedding? I didn't sabotage anything, I replied. I simply stopped paying for it. You... He stopped, blinked. What? I stopped paying for your wedding. The wedding I wasn't invited to. His face went blank. That's what this is about? Mom, there must have been some confusion with the guest list. Madison was handling... There was no confusion, Terrence. I walked to the kitchen table where I'd laid out the printed email from Madison, the one from April. I picked it up and held it out to him. Your fiancée asked me, very specifically, to fund your wedding as an anonymous sponsor so that her family could take the credit and you could save face. I paid $76,400. And last night, when I arrived at the Silverstone Grand Hotel at 5:45 p.m., I was informed by Madison, in front of the check-in staff, that I was not on the guest list, that I wasn't invited. She suggested I might be at the wrong event. Terrence took the email with shaking hands, read it. His face went from red to pale. I didn't know she said that, he whispered. Didn't you? I asked. Or did you simply agree when she told you it would be better if I didn't attend? His silence was answer enough. Terrence, I said quietly, look at me. He raised his eyes. They were Samuel's eyes, dark brown, expressive. Right now they were full of something that might have been shame. Did you know I wasn't on the guest list? I asked. He swallowed. Madison said you probably wouldn't want to come anyway, that you don't like big formal events, that you'd be more comfortable. More comfortable where? I interrupted. At home? Alone? While my only son gets married? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. He set the email down on the table, pressing his palms flat against the surface like he needed to steady himself. Madison's family, they have expectations. Her father is a partner at a major Charleston law firm. Her mother is on the board of the Historical Society. These are people who what? I asked. Who are better than us? No, that's not... Then say it clearly, Terrence. What are these people? He couldn't answer. I took a step closer. Your father built the altar at First Baptist Church. He restored the mayor's antique desk in 2015. He had clients who drove from Raleigh just to commission his work. And I was a registered nurse for 35 years. I supervised teams. I trained new graduates. I held people's hands while they died and made sure they weren't alone. My voice didn't rise. I kept it level, controlled. But Madison told her bridesmaids that I basically cleaned at the hospital, that your father was some kind of handyman. She said we were simple people who didn't fit her aesthetic. Terrence's face crumbled. Mom, And you agreed with her, I continued. You told her I wouldn't want to come. You let her exclude me. You took my money and erased me. I didn't mean to. Didn't you? The words came out louder than I'd intended. Terrence flinched. I took a breath, steadied myself. I need you to be honest with me right now, I said. Just once. Were you ashamed of me? The silence stretched between us like a physical thing, then barely audible. I wanted them to see me differently. See you differently than what? Than the black kid from the small house on Riverton Drive whose dad wore work boots and whose mom had night shifts. There it was. Finally, the truth. I worked 2 jobs to send you to UNC Wilmington, I said quietly. Your father worked through arthritis pain so bad some days he could barely hold his tools. We did that so you could have opportunities we never had. And the first thing you did with those opportunities was decide we weren't good enough to be seen with you. That's not fair, isn't it? I asked. When was the last time you came home, Terrence? Not for a quick stop on your way somewhere else. When was the last time you sat at this table and had a meal with me? He looked away. Your father's funeral, I said. March 28th, 2021. You stayed for 90 minutes after the service, then you left for a work emergency. You didn't come back. I had a trial. You had a choice, I interrupted. And you chose not to be here, just like you chose not to invite me to your wedding, just like you chose to take my $76,400 and pretend it came from someone else. Terrence's phone buzzed. He looked at it. It's Madison. She's at the hotel. Her parents are there. They're trying to figure out how to pay for everything, but we don't have... He looked at me desperately. Mom, please. I'm begging you. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you want. Just, please give us the money back. Please save the wedding. I walked past him to the front door and opened it. No, I said. Mom, you want the wedding, Terrence? Pay for it yourself. Show Madison's family who you really are. A man who's $183,000 in debt from student loans and credit cards, trying to buy his way into a world that will never fully accept him. His face went white. How do you know about... I'm your co-signer on half your debts, I said. I see the statements. I know exactly who you are, and I know you can't afford this wedding. You never could. That's why you needed me. So you're just going to let it fall apart? Let me be humiliated in front of everyone? I met his eyes. You humiliated yourself, Terrence. I'm just not covering for you anymore. I can't believe you're doing this. Neither can I said softly. For 35 years, I covered for you, made excuses, told myself you were busy, you were stressed, you'd call soon. But you know what? I'm done making myself smaller so you can feel bigger. He stood in the doorway, phone still buzzing in his hand. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Mom, please, get out. He left. I watched his BMW peel out of my driveway, leaving tire marks on the pavement. Then I closed the door, walked to my bedroom, and lay down on the bed Samuel and I shared for 34 years. And for the first time since the lobby last night, I cried. Not from regret, from grief. My son was gone. He'd been gone for years, but I'd finally accepted it. I woke up on Monday morning, September 16th, to 27 missed calls. 12 from Terrence. 8 from a number with a Charleston area code. Madison's parents, I assumed. 4 from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably reporters or guests from the wedding. 3 from women at First Baptist Church, likely calling to check on me after word had spread. I deleted the voicemails without listening to them, all except one. It had come in at 3:47 a.m. from Terrence. I pressed play and put the phone on speaker. His voice came through broken, thick with tears or alcohol or both. Mom, it's me. I know you're not going to answer. I know. A long pause. Madison left me. Her parents, they're done with me. They called me a fraud, a con artist. They said I lied about who I was, about where I came from, about everything. Static, like he was moving. And they're right, I did lie. I told them my family had investments. I said Dad left us comfortable. I let them think we were something we weren't. And when Madison found out tonight that you paid for everything, that I don't have any money, that I'm drowning in debt, his voice cracked. She looked at me like I was nothing. Another long pause. My firm called, the managing partner. He said they're reviewing my position because apparently I exaggerated my background during the hiring process. I told them I came from established family wealth. Jesus Christ, Mom. What did I do? I could hear him crying now. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. Madison won't answer my calls. Her father threatened to sue me for fraud, and I deserve it. I deserve all of it. Then so quiet I almost didn't hear it. I'm sorry, Mama, I'm so sorry. The voicemail ended. I sat at my kitchen table, the same Formica table Samuel picked out at a yard sale in 1991 for $15, and stared at my phone. Part of me wanted to call him back. The mother in me, the one who'd rocked him through nightmares and band-aided his scraped knees and stayed up all night when he had the flu, wanted to tell him it would be okay. But it wouldn't be okay. Not yet. maybe not ever, and he needed to learn that. I made coffee and didn't call him back. At 10:34 a.m., my phone rang again, a Charleston number I didn't recognize. I answered. Ruby? Madison's voice was different, smaller, no more honey-sweet condescension. Ruby, please don't hang up. I waited. I need to talk to you about what happened. All right, I said, talk. Not on the phone. Can I come see you? I'm in Wilmington. I'm at the Hampton Inn on Market Street. I can be at your house in 10 minutes. No, I said firmly. You're not welcome in my home. Silence. There's a coffee shop, I continued, Port City Java on Front Street. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hung up. 28 minutes later, I walked into Port City Java. Madison was already there, sitting at a corner table wearing jeans and a UNC sweatshirt. No makeup, her hair in a messy ponytail. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like a regular 28-year-old woman, not the polished Charleston debutante who'd dismissed me 2 nights ago. I ordered a black coffee, $2.75. I paid with exact change and sat down across from her. Thank you for coming, she said. I nodded once. I want to apologize, she began. I was cruel. I was wrong. I should never have excluded you from the wedding, and I— Stop, I said quietly. She stopped. I don't want a performance, Madison. If you drove 2 hours to apologize, fine. Apology noted. But don't waste my time with rehearsed words. She blinked rapidly, fighting tears. I don't know what else to say. Then say the truth. Why did you really not want me there? She looked down at her untouched latte. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, because you would have made it obvious. Made what obvious? That Terrence isn't who I told everyone he was. Her voice was barely above a whisper. My family, they're old Charleston. My great-great-grandfather helped found the city's port authority. My father's firm has represented the same families for 3 generations. When I told them I was dating Terrence, they had concerns. Because he's black, I said flatly. They didn't say it like that. They said things like background and fit and cultural compatibility. But yes, she met my eyes. Yes, that was part of it. I sipped my coffee. I convinced them Terrence was different, she continued. That he came from a good family with education and stability. That he went to Harvard. That he was making 6 figures at a top firm. I made him sound like he came from the same world they did, just a different shade. So you erased his real story, I said. Yes, she twisted her napkin. And when you were there, in that dress, with my what? I asked. My accent? My manner? My blackness that wasn't polished enough for your family? She flinched but didn't deny it. I thought if I could just get through the wedding, she said. If I could just show them this perfect picture, then it wouldn't matter. Then they'd accept him, accept us, and we could move forward. But it was all a lie. Yes, we sat in silence. My mother called me yesterday, Madison said, after everything fell apart. She said she knew it was too good to be true, that she knew Terrence was one of those social climbers trying to marry into better circumstances. She said I was lucky I found out before the wedding. And what did you say? I said— Her voice broke. I said she was right. I set down my coffee cup carefully. That's why you came here, I said. Not to apologize, to make sure I knew you'd ended things with Terrence. No, yes, I ended things. But I came because I feel terrible. You feel terrible because you got caught, I interrupted. You feel terrible because your parents found out Terrence lied, which means you lied, which means your perfect Charleston wedding was built on the money of a black nurse from a small house on Riverton Drive. That's what you feel terrible about. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up. Madison, I don't forgive you, and I don't need your apology. What I need is for you to understand something. My son spent years being ashamed of me, of his father, of where he came from. And you encouraged it. You profited from it. You took $76,400 from the woman you deemed too simple to sit at your wedding. I picked up my purse. I hope one day you learn that there is no amount of money, no amount of pretending, that will make you belong somewhere you have to erase yourself to enter. and I hope Terrence learns that too." I left her sitting there. 3 days later, on Thursday, September 19th, Amara showed up at my door. She was holding a manila envelope. "Grandma Ruby," she said, stepping inside and hugging me tight. "I have something from Uncle Terrence." I'd seen Amara briefly on Monday. She'd come straight from campus when she got my email, spent 2 hours on my couch holding my hand while I told her everything. She'd cried, furious on my behalf, and told me I did the right thing. Now she looked hesitant. "He asked me to give this to you," she said, holding out the envelope. He said if it came in the mail, you wouldn't open it." "He's right," I said, taking the envelope. "I haven't read it," Amara added quickly. "But he wrote it by hand. I saw him working on it for 2 days straight." Inside was a letter, 6 pages, front and back, in Terrence's handwriting. Messy but legible, the same scrawl I'd seen on school papers and birthday cards for 35 years. I sat down at my kitchen table and read, "Mom, I don't deserve for you to read this, but I need to write it anyway. I've been sitting in my apartment for 3 days thinking about everything. The wedding, the money, the lies. And I keep coming back to one question. When did I become this person? I think it started at UNC Wilmington. I was 18 and I was the only black student in my honors dorm. Everyone else came from Raleigh suburbs or Charlotte private schools. They talked about family vacations to Europe and summer houses in the Outer Banks. And when they asked where I was from, I said a small town and left it at that. They assumed I meant a small town with money. I didn't correct them. When Dad came to visit sophomore year, wearing his work clothes because he'd driven straight from a job, I introduced him to my roommate as my father and nothing else. I didn't say he was a carpenter. I didn't say he built beautiful things with his hands. I just let them assume. And when you came to my graduation from Harvard, I told you not to bring anyone. I said it was because space was limited. But the truth is, I didn't want my classmates to meet you. I didn't want them to hear your accent, see your nursing scrubs in your car, know that you'd worked the night shift and driven 8 hours to watch me walk across a stage. I was ashamed, Mom. I was ashamed of the house on Riverton Drive with the creaky porch step. I was ashamed of Dad's work boots by the door. I was ashamed of the way you said y'all and ain't when you were tired. I was ashamed that we shopped at Walmart and ate at Golden Corral and drove a 14-year-old Honda. I spent 12 years building a lie. I told my law firm I came from established family wealth. I told Madison my parents were semi-retired professionals. I let everyone believe I was someone I wasn't. And when you offered to pay for the wedding, I saw it as the perfect final piece. Your money could fund the fantasy, and by staying anonymous, you wouldn't contradict it. I didn't think about what that meant to you. I didn't think about how it would feel to be erased. Madison left me. Her parents want nothing to do with me. My firm is investigating discrepancies in my application materials. I might lose my job. I definitely lost my credibility, and I deserve all of it. But losing you, losing the mother who worked double shifts so I could go to college, who co-signed loans when I had no credit, who believed in me even when I was a stupid kid who didn't appreciate anything, that's what's breaking me. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need you to know, I see you now. I see your strength, your sacrifice, your dignity. I see that the woman who raised me is worth 100 Madison Whitmores and 1,000 Charleston Society events. I see that Dad was a master craftsman, not a handyman. I see that you saved lives, not just worked at a hospital. I see that our house was full of love, even if it wasn't full of expensive things. I see you, Mom, and I'm sorry it took losing everything to open my eyes. I love you. I always have, even when I was too broken to show it. Terrence. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Amara watched me. Are you okay? I don't know yet, I said honestly. Sunday, September 22nd. 1 week after the wedding, that wasn't. I attended service at First Baptist Church like I did every Sunday. I'd been a member since 1987, sang in the choir until my knees got bad, taught Sunday school to 3 generations of children. The church was full. Word had spread. Wilmington is a small city, and the black community is even smaller. Everyone knew about the wedding, about the cancellation, about my son. I sat in my usual pew, 3 rows from the front on the left side. Dorothy sat next to me, wearing her purple hat and a dress with too many ruffles. Pastor Williams delivered a sermon about forgiveness and boundaries, and I knew he'd chosen it for me. After the service, during fellowship hour in the church basement, I was pouring myself coffee when I heard a commotion at the door. Terrence had walked in. The room went quiet. He was wearing a suit, but it looked slept in. His tie was crooked. He'd shaved, but missed a spot under his jaw. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 7 days. He scanned the room, found me, and walked over. 53 pairs of eyes watched us. "Mom," he said, "can I talk to you?" "We're in church," I said quietly. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." He swallowed hard, looked around at all the faces, people who'd known him since he was in diapers, people who'd celebrated his scholarships and his graduations and his success, people who now knew he'd betrayed his mother. "I need to say something," he said louder now, addressing the room. "To all of you." Pastor Williams stepped forward. "Son, if you need to speak, you can speak." Terrence nodded, took a breath. "Most of you knew my father, Samuel Jenkins," he began. "You knew him as a good man, a hard worker, a deacon of this church. He built the altar you pray at. He taught Sunday school. He was proud of his work, proud of his family, proud of his life." People nodded. "My mother, Ruby, worked as a nurse for 35 years. She worked night shifts so she could be home when I got out of school. She saved lives. She helped people in their worst moments. She served this community with everything she had." His voice shook. "Last month I asked my mother to pay for my wedding, $76,400. Every cent she'd saved from her nursing career. I asked her to do it anonymously so my fiancé's family would think the money came from somewhere better." A few gasps. "And then I didn't invite her to the wedding." The silence was absolute. "I let my fiancé tell my mother she wasn't on the guest list. I stood by while the woman who gave me everything was turned away at the door of an event she'd paid for, because I was ashamed." He looked directly at me. "I was ashamed of where I came from. Ashamed of this church, this community, this life. I wanted to be someone else. Someone richer, someone whiter, someone better. And I thought if I could just erase the parts of me that didn't fit that image, I could become that person." Tears ran down his face. "But you can't build a life on lies, and you can't become someone worth being by destroying the people who made you who you are." He turned back to the congregation. "My mother didn't sabotage my wedding. She didn't ruin my life. I did that myself. She just stopped enabling me to hurt her." Pastor Williams put a hand on Terrence's shoulder. "And now I'm standing here," Terrence continued, "in front of all of you, asking for nothing. Not forgiveness, not sympathy, just witness. I need you all to know that Ruby Mae Jenkins is the strongest woman I've ever known, and I was too weak to see it." He looked at me one more time. "I love you, Mom, and I'm sorry. For all of it." The room was silent. Then I stood up. "Terrence," I said clearly so everyone could hear, "I appreciate your words, but this isn't about public apologies or performances." He started to speak. I held up my hand. "You want to make this right? Here's how." I walked closer to him. 1. Get help. Real therapy, not just guilt. You have internalized shame about who you are, where you come from, what you look like. Deal with that. 2. Pay off your debts yourself. Every cent. $183,000. I will not help you. You will learn to live within your means. 3. Build a life based on truth, not image. If you lose your job, find another one. If you lose your friends, find real ones. Stop performing for people who require you to erase yourself." I took a breath. And 4, when you can look in the mirror and see Samuel's son, not Harvard's graduate, not Madison's ex-fiancé, not the successful lawyer, but your father's son, come talk to me then. Until that day, I love you. But I don't trust you. And I won't fund you. Not ever again. The room was absolutely still. "And Terrence," I added, "stop performing your apologies for an audience. A man who needs witnesses for his redemption isn't redeemed. He's just scared." I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Dorothy followed me. Behind us, I heard Pastor Williams say softly, "Son, I think you've got some work to do." March 2025, my 63rd birthday. I woke up in my house on Riverton Drive, sunlight streaming through the bedroom window that Samuel used to stand at every morning, coffee in hand, watching the birds. The house felt different now, lighter. I'd repainted the kitchen a soft yellow, replaced the old couch, hung new curtains. Not because I needed to erase Samuel's memory, but because I needed to make space for my own life. I made coffee and sat on my back porch. The garden was thriving. I'd spent the winter planting tomatoes, peppers, herbs. Dorothy came over twice a week to help me weed. We'd talk about everything and nothing, and sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence. At noon, Amara arrived with a homemade cake. Chocolate, my favorite. "Happy birthday, Grandma Ruby." She hugged me tight. At 23, she was beautiful and confident and fierce. She'd just had her first art exhibition at a small gallery in downtown Wilmington. The exhibition was called Invisible Women, black and white portraits of working-class black women from Wilmington, nurses, teachers, hairdressers, housekeepers, women who kept the city running while being overlooked. The dedication plaque read, "For Ruby Mae Jenkins, who taught me to take up space." The exhibition sold 6 pieces for a total of $18,400. Amara was using the money, combined with the trust fund I'd set up for her with the remaining $68,400 from my savings, to open her own studio space. We ate cake on the porch, and she told me about her plans. At 3 p.m., there was a knock at the door. I already knew who it was. Terrence stood on my porch holding a small wrapped gift. He'd taken the bus. I could see it pulling away down the street. No more leased BMO. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said quietly. "Come in," I said. He'd changed, lost weight. His suit was cheaper, off the rack instead of tailored. His watch was a Timex, not the Tag Heuer he used to wear. "I can't stay long," he said. "I have to work at 4. "Where are you working?" I asked. "I'm a public defender now," he said. "Wake County. The pay is terrible, $52,000 a year. But it's honest work. I'm helping people who need it." I nodded. "I've paid off $47,000 of my debt so far," he continued. "Working 2 jobs, public defender during the day, teaching LSAT prep classes at night. I'm living in a studio apartment in Durham. No car, just a bike." "That's good," I said. "And I'm in therapy, twice a week. Dr. Patricia Moore, she's helping me understand things." He handed me the wrapped gift. "I wanted to give you this." Inside was a framed photograph. Samuel holding baby Terrence, both of them laughing. I'd never seen this picture before. "I found it in a box of Dad's things I'd been storing," Terrence said. "I've been going through everything, remembering, learning who he really was, who we really were." I traced the frame with my finger. "There's someone I want you to meet," Terrence said hesitantly. "Her name is Shanice Washington. She's a teacher at a Durham middle school. We met at the public library. She was there with her students. I was researching a case. She knows everything," he continued, "about the wedding, about what I did, about all of it. And she told me I was an idiot. But she also said people can change if they're willing to do the work." "Do you love her?" I asked. "I think so, but I'm taking it slow, learning to be honest, learning to be myself." We sat in silence for a moment. "You can stay for dinner," I said. "But you sit at the folding table, not the main one. You haven't earned your seat back yet." "I understand," he said. During dinner, fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread. Terrence was quiet but present. He helped wash dishes. He asked Amara about her art. He didn't check his phone once. When he left to catch the 7 p.m. bus, he hugged me. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For loving me enough to let me fall. For not catching me. For making me learn to stand on my own." I squeezed his hand. That's what real love does. 1 year after the wedding, that wasn't. September 2025. I'm 63 years old, and my life looks nothing like I expected. I volunteer at New Hanover Regional Medical Center 3 days a week, mentoring new nurses. I'm teaching them not just about IV lines and medication protocols, but about dignity, about seeing patients as people, about the difference you can make when you show up fully. I started a support group at First Baptist Church called Women Who Stopped Shrinking. We meet every other Tuesday. 12 women, ages 58 to 74, all learning to set boundaries, demand respect, take up space. Dorothy and I took a trip to Nigeria this summer, met distant cousins, visited my mother's childhood village. I scattered some of Samuel's ashes in the place where my mother was born. Full circle. And I'm dating Bernard Williams, Pastor Williams' younger brother. He's 67, a retired high school English teacher, widowed like me. We met at church fellowship hour. He asked if I'd like to get coffee. I said yes. We're taking it slow. No pressure. Just companionship, conversation, laughter. He knows my story. He doesn't try to fix it. He just listens. Terrence calls every Sunday. We talk for exactly 30 minutes. No more, no less. It's a boundary we agreed on. He tells me about his work, his progress on debt repayment. He's up to $71,000 paid off. His therapy insights. Last month, he brought Shanice to meet me. She's lovely, smart, funny, no nonsense. A woman who doesn't need him to be anything other than who he is. When they left, she pulled me aside and said, "Thank you for raising a man who can learn." Amara is thriving. Her art studio opened in June. She teaches classes to teenagers, kids from the same neighborhoods Terrence and I came from, kids who need someone to tell them their stories matter. She's dating a sweet boy named Deshaun, who works at the port and writes poetry in his spare time. They're taking it slow, building something real. I wake up every morning in the house on Riverton Drive. I make coffee in the same Mr. Coffee machine Samuel bought in 1992. I sit on the back porch and watch the sun rise over my garden. And I take up space. I don't apologize for existing. I don't make myself smaller so others can feel bigger. I don't fund dreams that require my erasure. People ask me sometimes if I regret it. Canceling the wedding, hurting my son, causing all that pain. And I tell them the truth. I regret waiting 62 years to demand respect. Mother's love is unconditional, yes. But respect? Respect has to be earned. Even from your children. Especially from your children. I spent 6 decades making myself invisible so others could shine. Working double shifts so Terrence could have opportunities. Staying quiet so Samuel could rest. Shrinking so everyone around me had room to grow. And where did it get me? Standing in a hotel lobby, told I wasn't invited to an event I'd paid $76,400 to create. But that woman, the one who said I understand and walked away, she's not here anymore. The woman I am now, she says I deserve better, and means it. Some people call what I did selfish. They say a mother should forgive anything, accept anything, endure anything. But I call it survival. I call it dignity. I call it love. Real love. The kind that demands truth and accountability and growth. The greatest victory wasn't seeing Terrence humbled or Madison exposed or the wedding collapse. The greatest victory was this: waking up in my own house, in my own skin, in my own life, and finally, feeling like I belong in it. I'm Ruby Mae Jenkins. I'm 63 years old. I worked as a nurse for 35 years. I raised a son who lost his way but might find it again. I saved $76,400 and spent it on my granddaughter's future instead of my son's lie. And I learned something important. You can't buy belonging. You can't fund your way into love. You can only be yourself, fully, honestly, unapologetically, and trust that the people who matter will see you. I'm visible now, and I'm never disappearing again. My name is Ruby Mae Jenkins, and this is my story. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had to choose between peace and dignity, drop a comment below. Tell me your city. Tell me your story. You're not alone, and you deserve to be seen.